month in a row as demand outpaces a slight uptick that we saw in supply. But let's get a look at where things stand right now with Tim Rood. He's SitusAMC's director. And Tim, I guess, explain to us about where we are in this housing market, because I think we've been waiting for, 16, 17 months to see things slow down just a bit. It looks like supply is coming back, albeit a very slow uptick. Are we seeing any signs of the housing market slowing down?
Hey, Shauna. In summary, no. I mean, you're really right. Reaching for straws when people are like, there's a slowdown because you went from 2.5 months of inventory to, wait for it, 2.6 months of inventory. I mean, we need 6 months of inventory just to be on a kind of a normal trajectory. So, I mean, the housing market, obviously, if you're a seller, it's hotter than a grease fire. It's pathetic if you're a buyer who are fatigued, priced out, wiped out, and pretty dejected, and now are trying to find themselves opportunities in the rental market, which is causing rents to go up as well. So it's a pretty horrible situation if you're trying to find shelter.
Tim, and I don't want to put lipstick on a pig. It's always good to see you regarding this situation. I don't want to call it a housing crisis, but here's what we're facing. Economists use this term like a negative feedback loop. So right now, interest rates are low, which have helped drive prices higher. But eventually, interest rates are going to go up, which is going to make it even less affordable for people to get into the housing market. At that point, might we see some price correction to the downside?
I think you'd see price correction all across the board, not just in housing, but stocks, commodities, et cetera. So, I mean, right now you're in this kind of liquidity black hole, largely created by Fed policy and some, very aggressive, heavy-handed legislation in response to COVID. So, I don't see anything that's going to change, some of the demographic tailwinds. If you think one of the main drivers right now is you've got millennials, we all know, coming of age. I just looked at it this morning. You've got 45 million millennials aged 25 to 35 in that prime home buying age. And heck, almost 50% of them still live at home with their moms. That's something that's going to be even more pent up demand that's going to be coming. Interest rates is another thing. I mean, look, we're living through basically the great experiment of modern monetary theory, where, as sources of capital, the United States has got enough confidence that we can just keep printing and paying for things without any real consequence. So as a consequence of that, then there's really no way that the Fed can allow interest rates to rise. So it's going to take some market correction, some market event, credit, stocks, otherwise, to really, cause any of this trajectory to change and rates to go up. And when rates do go up, think about it this way: a 1% rise in interest rates acts like a 10% tax. We just had 18% year-over-year appreciation rates. Even if rates went up a full percent, it's going to slow things down. It'll moderate, but it's not going to crash.
Tim, most people are still working from home, but there's some, I think all of us or many of us can say that we know someone who has gone back to the office. Has that at all change the dynamics of the housing market, just in terms of where people are buying or what people are buying right now?
No, that's a great question. I mean, so look, obviously COVID was a huge driver for home ownership, but also it's a huge driver for bigger homes. So what you noticed is, of course, now your house, even still for a lot of folks, it's where you work, it's where you sleep, it's your gym, it's your kid's schoolroom, it's your entertainment, yada, yada. So the size of houses is going up. What you were finding is people were basically driving until they could afford, right? Drive until you qualify. So they were moving out to the exurbs, bigger space, greener space, so on and so forth. And now you've got the anxiety that, well, Delta variant notwithstanding, that, corporations are coming out with their work from home policies. And people are getting anxious, saying, look, I'm probably going to have to go back in the office at least a few days a week. So I don't know that I can drive out to Boise, Idaho, and be states away or 5 hours away from my job. So I think you're starting to see people coming closer into the suburbs and, factoring that in. But the Delta variant is one of those things too, which is just when people were getting confident and less anxious, all of a sudden now you cast a pail of water on that. And this anxiety is driving demand because, again, people don't want to get caught up in a situation that they were, in March of 2020.
And so help us understand something, and forgive my myopic, self-centeredness on this one, but the banging and the drilling you hear as I'm talking to you, perhaps they're renovating an apartment upstairs. Every apartment in this building, there have been 12 in the last 8 months, has sold. And you see this across New York City. Apartments are selling. Apartments are small. What's going on?
I noticed that. It's funny you bring that up, Adam. So I was reading about this morning. If you see co-ops in condos are selling at about, I think it's almost double the rate of single family. And it's not just because of, in terms of personal preference, right? It's because the single family market is so hot. Competition is so great. The average property in general is staying on the market for only 2 weeks, and just about virtually everything is sold within 30 days. I mean, that is just a blistering pace. But you are seeing condos and co-ops actually are outpacing them. One, because there's less demand for them, there's less competition. People are less anxious about quarantining and being in a tight space or being in a dense urban or suburban area. So I think that's contributing to it. How durable that is, I don't know. I would think that if the Delta variant becomes, gets handled through the vaccine or a third dose or something like that, that trend will continue. And there's been a mass migration out of dense urban areas in general for over 10 years. So while you're certainly seeing COVID exacerbate that, that's been a long-term trend.
Tim Rood, always great to speak with you. SitusAMC's director. We'll talk with you again soon. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking men's